We begin today the Gemara towards the bottom of Daf Tzadik Ches Amud Beis at the Mishnah. This Mishnah, the next Mishnah, is going to be discussing the halachas of when you give an item to a craftsman to make something for you out of it, and he doesn't do the job right, he breaks it. What's the halachas of when and what he has to pay you for the damage that he did? Zog Teilige Mishnah Nosan Lo Umnin Lesakin. You gave to a craftsman an item to fix for you. The kilkulu, and instead he broke it, he ruined it. Chayavon l'shalem. So he has to pay you for the damage. Nasan l'cheresh, you give to a carpenter a shida, teva, or migdal. A shida is a kind of wagon, wagons they had in those times with the enclosure, or a teva is a box, migdal is a closet. L'sakin, you give it to him to fix for you. The kilkul, and he broke it. Chayav l'shalem, he has to pay you for this. V'habanoi, a builder, shekibul olav lister sakaisel, he has a job to demolish a wall for you, v'shibira avonim. But he broke the stones of the wall. He was supposed to demolish the wall, but not break the stones. But he did it in a negligent manner that the stones broke. Oy shehizikon, or shehizikum, have to be guided of shehizik. By demolishing this wall, the stones fell and it hurt, it injured, it damaged something or someone. Chayav l'shalem, he has to pay for this. If he was demolishing the wall on one side of it, and now another section of the wall on the other side fell, and it wasn't a direct result of what he did. The wall, when it's all connected, so then the wall on the other side can stand sturdier because it's being supported by the wall on this side. So he breaks the wall on one side, and then the other side of the wall becomes weaker, and then as a result, it ends up falling. Pater. But he's going to be pater for this because this is only a grama. You didn't directly break that part of the wall. You just caused it to become weaker and then it broke. But if the other side of the wall collapses as a direct result of the bang that you gave on this side of the wall, then chayiv. Then you'll be chayiv for damaging the other side of the wall. Omer Ravasi. So Ravasi said here about our Mishnah regarding a craftsman that gets raw materials and he's supposed to build out of it something. He's supposed to build out of it furniture or whatever it is. Lo shanu, we didn't learn the din of our Mishnah that it says that you have to pay back for the damage that you've done. El shanosan lecheresh. If you gave for this carpenter shida, teva, or migdal, various different. You gave him already the shida, teva, or migdal, which is it's already made. The night's ben masmer. Now you gave it to this craftsman to fix, to knock in a nail in it. And then the noat's ben masmer, and this craftsman went and he knocked in a nail, and v'shibron, and by the way he did it, he damaged it, he broke it. So in such a case, when you damaged this shida teva migdal that you got, so you're going to have to pay him back the value of the entire shida teva migdal. You got a shida teva migdal in a good condition, and you destroyed it, so you have to pay that all back. Aval, however, no san lecheresh eitzim. If you give a carpenter raw materials, wood, last size shida teva migdal, that he should build out of it a shida teva or migdal. V'asamehen shida teva or migdal v'shibron, and he built out of it a shida teva migdal. He built out of it one of these things, and then it broke in his hands. He broke it. He was negligent with it. He broke it. Potter. So then you're going to be potter of paying the value of the shida teva migdal. You only have to pay back to the owner. You have to give him back the raw materials as they are or their value for what they are. But for the actual shida teva migdal, that you don't. The value of the shida teva migdal itself, that you don't have to give him back. My time. What's the reason for this? Because Ravasi holds ulmon kaine b'shvach keli. A craftsman, he acquires the shvach, the new improvement that you made here, you formed and you created this new piece of furniture out of it, that belongs to the craftsman. In other words, the way of Asi defines the relationship that there is between the owner and the craftsman is that when you're getting something, when you're getting raw materials, this is a kablan here, it's not being paid by the time for the job that he's doing, but he's being paid for a certain project here to make this piece of furniture out of it. So when you take this raw materials and you make a piece of furniture out of it, the raw materials belongs to the original owner that gave it to you. But the actual keli, the furniture that you built and created, that's yours. That you have a kinyan on. That belongs to you. And then when the owner pays you for it, He's not only paying you for the physical labor, he's also paying you now for this new entity that you created, and you're selling it back to him. He gave you the raw materials, now you created a new Metzius, and now you're selling back to him this new thing, this new piece of furniture for the money that he pays you for it. So if so, this new thing, this Shida Teva Migdal that you now created, that's yours. Before he pays you, if you ruined it in your possession, you don't have to pay him for the actual Shida Teva Migdal. That belongs to you. The raw materials, that's what you have to pay him back for. So therefore, over here in this case, because you were kind of this, the Shvach Keli, the new piece of furniture that's here, that belongs to you. So when you damage that, you didn't damage his, you damaged what belongs to you. So that you don't pay back, you just pay back the raw materials. That's Rav Asi's understanding of how it works with a uman. And like I said, this is we're talking here specifically about a uman that is not being paid by the time, he's being paid for the kablan, being paid for the job that he's doing to create this piece of furniture. So the Gemara now asks from what it says in our Mishnah. Tanan, the Mishnah says, Nasan la'umnin, you gave an item to a craftsman to make something from it for you. The kilkulu, and they ruined it, they broke it. Chayav l'shalom, so they have to pay. So the Gemara now understands what is the Mishnah talking about. My love, don't you think the Mishnah means the yavlu eitzim, that a person gave the uman just raw materials, wood, and the Mishnah is saying that you took that wood and you made a keli out of it and you broke it, you have to pay the whole thing. The Mishnah doesn't give any limitations. The Mishnah says you have to pay for it all, including for the shvach, this new piece of furniture that you made out of it. So you see that it doesn't belong to you. It's not something that belongs to you and you're selling it back. No, it belongs to the original owner and you have to pay it all back. And says the Gemara, that's not what the Mishnah meant to say. Shida, Teva, or Migdal. The Mishnah meant to say that this person didn't give you raw materials. He gave you already a specific item, Shida, Teva, Migdal, and that specific item he gave you to fix, and instead of fixing it, you broke it. So then you have to pay back the whole value of the Shida, Teva, or Migdal. Fragt the Gemara, how could you say that's what the case of the Reish is talking about? But when it says in the Sefer of the Mishnah, Shida, Teva, or Migdal, the next case it says that the person gave you his Shida Teva Migdal to fix. Meklal de Reisha Eitzim. So in the Reisha of the Mishnah, where it just says Nosan Lo'umnin L'sakin, it sounds like it's talking about just raw materials, wood. Amri, so they answered, no, that's not the pshat of the Mishnah. Pirushika Mefarish Shlo. The second case of the Mishnah is actually only there to explain what the first case of the Mishnah was talking about. Keitzad, when it said in the first case of the Mishnah that you gave a uman to be misakin, what's the case? What exactly did you give him? Nasan lo umnin l'sakin v'kilkulu chayav l'shalem, that when you give him and he ruins it, that he has to pay for the whole value of the whole thing. Kagayin shenasan l'cheresh shida tevo migdal. That's only in a case where what you gave him, you already gave him a certain piece of furniture. You gave him already a certain keli, and then he went and ruined that. So you have to pay the whole value of that piece of furniture that he gave you. But if it was raw materials, then you don't pay back the piece of furniture that you created. That's your creation, that you have ownership over, and before he pays you, it's yours. That you don't pay back.
Yeah, if you didn't give him any money for it.
Yeah, exactly. If it wasn't paid for yet, correct. After he paid you already for it, and then you ruined it, for sure you're going to have to pay him the whole thing. Says the Gemara, it's logical to say that the second part of the Mishnah is an explanation for the first part of the Mishnah, the Keitzat Katani. The second part of the Mishnah is explaining. If you're going to say the first part of the Mishnah is just talking about raw materials, so then why does it have to say the second case? Hashtash me, now once the Mishnah in the beginning tells me Eitzim, that he gives you raw materials. Chayav and l'shalem, still you have to pay him when you destroyed now this piece of furniture that you made. You have to pay him the whole value of the whole piece of furniture, even though he just gave you raw materials. And that would mean that the Tana here is telling me that this craftsman does not acquire this piece of furniture. That it's not his. It's all the raw materials and the furniture as well. It all belongs to the owner. Even the fact that you created it doesn't mean that you have any kinyan over here. No, you're just a worker. And therefore you have to, if you ruin it, you have to pay the value of the whole thing for him. That's what the Reisha of the Mishnah would be saying. So then Shida, Tevo, Migdal, Mibaya, in the Seif of the Mishnah, where he gave you a piece of furniture, not that you created, he gave you a piece of furniture, for sure you have to pay him if you ruin that piece of furniture. What would be the Chiddush in the Seif of the Mishnah? So it must be that the Reisha of the Seif is really one case. Says the Gemara, no, if that's your proof that this is the pshat of the Mishnah, lo yirya, it's not a proof. Because we have sometimes that we could say, Tana Seife Legluya Reisha. The Mishnah says one case, then it says a second case, even though the second case, after you've learned the first case, seems to be no Chiddush, but actually the second case clarifies what the correct pshat of the Reisha is. Shaloi Taimar, don't think that to say that Reisha, Shedetevo Migdal, when it says in the Reisha that he gave you an item to fix, it's talking about that he gave you already a piece of furniture to fix, but if it would be just raw materials, loi, then you don't have to pay him the whole value of what you ruined. Therefore, Tana Sefer Shedetevo Migdal. So it says in the Sefer, the case where he gave you already a piece of furniture, and then Miklau, from this you don't understand that the Reisha hates him. That the Reisha is speaking about raw materials, and you'll still be chayiv to pay for the full damage of this furniture that you created, even though he just gave you raw materials. So there's no right from this Mishnah either way. Shall we say that we could bring a raya to Rav Asi's halacha from the Beferish Mishnah that there is later over here in the Pedic? The Mishnah says, Hanoisin tzemer, that is, letzabo. A person gives wool to a dyer. Okay, we're on the top of Tzadik Tesam with the Aleph, the first line. So you give the wool to a dyer, and he put it into the pot where it's heated up, and he dyes it, but the fire was too high and he burnt it. So thou, this dyer, only has to pay back to the owner for the damage that he did here, just the value of the wool itself, not the value also of now this dyed wool. So the Gemara says, the Meitzamrei you only pay the wool, the Meitzamrei shvach, but you don't pay the damage that was caused here now to the wool and the shvach, the improvement that now it's dyed wool. Says the Gemara, Lav, don't you think the case of here is that when it got burnt, when was this? After it was in the pot and it already got dyed. So it was already improved by this craftsman. And after it was already improved, and he formed a new thing here, that instead of it just being raw material of wool, it's already dyed wool. After that, you went and you left it in the pot too long, and it got burnt. The ikke shvacha, so you already improved it. And what is this Mishnah saying? That the shvach of it, that's yours. That's something that you added to it, and therefore that's something that it belongs to you. And when this person pays you, you're selling it back to him. But until he pays you, it belongs to you. So you only have to pay him back if you ruined it, the raw materials that he gave you. Exactly like Ravasi said. That this craftsman acquires the shvach, the dye in this case of this keli, of this wool, and therefore you only pay back the wool itself, not the dye. So Shmuel answers, no, there's no dye from that Mishnah. The case over there is over there, it got burnt as soon as it fell into the pot, as soon as it put into, even before there was any dye in it. So what did he ruin? He ruined the raw material of the wool, not a dyed wool that already had a shvach in it. So that's not related at all to the case that Ravasi was talking about when you ruin something after you already made it into a piece of furniture. The lek shvach, at the time when he ruined it, there was no shvach here yet. That's the way Shmuel answered and explained that Mishnah. So the Gemara is medayik now to understand what Shmuel's opinion is. So what does that mean? Would that mean that Shmuel holds that if you burnt this wool after it was already dyed, what's going to be the halacha then? Does that mean that the craftsman now will have to pay not only the value of the wool itself, but the value of dyed wool? So shall we say Shmuel, let's say that Shmuel disagrees with Ravasi, and that's why he's interpreting the Mishnah this way. Rashi says the relevance of this is whenever there's a machlokes regarding dinei mominus, we always paskin like Shmuel, so that would mean we don't paskin like Ravasi. Amalach, Shmuel, no, Shmuel will answer you. This case over here is different. Hacha b'mayeskina and kagoin ditzemer v'samonim the balabayis. Over here, it's not only the wool that the owner gave this person, this craftsman. He gave him the wool, and he actually gave him also the samonim, the materials that are needed to dye as well. So therefore, vitzaba aga yadeo de this dyer, he only gets paid for the labor, for the work that he's doing, but all the materials belong to this person. So therefore, in such a case, if you ruined it after it was already dyed, you have to pay him back everything, the wool and the dye, because it all belongs to the owner. But you can't say that that's the pshat in the Mishnah, because so then the halacha should be, the Mishnah should say that you have to pay him back both the tzemer and the samonim. Why does it say in the Mishnah that you only give him back the meit samurai? So the Gemara says that's not the pshat over there in that Mishnah. Ela Shmuel d'chuye kamatchile. Shmuel, he didn't mean to argue with Ravasi. He just meant to tell Ravasi, from that Mishnah you don't have a raya to your halacha. He was just pushing him off to you don't have a raya from it because it's a different case over there. It already got ruined before the shvach came. But the halacha Ravasi could be he still agrees with. Tashema, the Gemara says, let's bring a raya from another brayse. Hanoisen talisei le'uman, a person gives a garment to a craftsman to do alterations. Gamra, he finished the job. Vaidiyai, and he let the owner know to come pick it up. But he didn't come pick it up yet, he didn't pay for it yet, and it's sitting by this tailor. So even if it sits there for 10 days, even more than 10 days, and it wasn't paid for yet, but he didn't pick it up either. So you're not over on the lav of leit tolen. The lav of leit tolen is when a person does a job for you during the day and he finishes his job in the middle of the day, you're supposed to pay him until the night. If you pay him past that time, you're over on the lav of delaying the payment. Or if he does the job and he finishes it during the night, you should pay him until the morning. That's over here. But this guy left left his clothing still by the tailor and he didn't even pick it up yet. So therefore, there's no lav yet of delaying payment. Once you pick it up, then you have time to pay. But I say it continues. If you gave back the garment to the owner in the middle of the day, when it comes nightfall, then you're over for baltalan for delaying the payment. Okay, so now here the Gemara is going to say this concept usually it says in the pasuk this lav of delaying a payment for a worker. It generally refers to a person that's hired for a certain time. He's hired for a day or for a year or so on. So then he finishes his job at a certain time in the day, and now you have to pay him by the end of that day or the end of that night. Over here, though, the chiddush of this brayse is this tailor that's doing alterations is not being hired by time. He's hired for a specific job. So who says in such a case, when you're hired for a specific job, this whole concept of delaying payment applies? And the Gemara explains, if you're going to say like Ravasi's opinion, then when you give a craftsman a specific job to do, not being paid by the time, but for that job, and the way this works is, he takes this garment, and now he improves it, he fixes it, he takes raw materials and builds something out of it. So really, now that he built something new out of it, or he improved it, that improvement, he owns it. He created it, he did it, it belongs to him. And he's just selling it back to you. So really, this is very different than a person that's being paid by the time. This is more like a buyer and a seller. He owns now that shvach that he made, and now you have to pay him not only for the labor, but for the shvach that he created here. That's what, when you pay a kabbalah, you're paying him for the project, for the job, you're paying him like you're buying something from him. So that's not a regular case of a person that works for the time, that there's a halacha of delaying payment. So why should you be over if you delay the payment? It's like a buyer and a seller. By a buyer and a seller, there's no halacha, there's no lav of delaying payment when you buy something from someone. But have money.
It doesn't happen anymore.
He what? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If someone sells you,
back to the owner.
If someone sells you any item, true. If someone sells you an apple and you're supposed to pay him $1 right then, and you pay it to him a week later, there's no lav of baltalan. Over here,
Why
this
not?
crap. As I tell you, the isser of baltalan only applies regarding a worker, a sachir. It's lashon of the pasuk. Right? By a sachir, there's the lav of baltalan. You pay him after he's done that time. He was hired for a certain time, and he's expecting to get paid when his time is up. But by a person that sells things, people sell things on credit all the time over there, that lav doesn't apply. So according to Ravasi, the same should be by a kablon that's working on a job, and the shvach is his, and he's giving you back the shvach. It's like a sale. So the lav shouldn't apply. Over here, we're talking about a case, begarda de sarbala, a person that combs this thick coat that has this wool that has to be combed, the lekeshvache. So over here, he's just getting paid for the labor, for what he's doing to comb it, but there's no actual shvach. There's nothing that you could say that he acquired and he's giving back, selling back. It's just a job that he's doing, and therefore this is a worker where the lav does apply. Frek Gemara, even this example of this coat that has to be combed, there is a certain shvach, sof in the end, even regarding this kind of item. Why did he give this coat to him? To soften it. It was too stiff and he had to soften it. So if he softens it, that is, it's It's now a new condition. It's a new coat. The coat before was not wearable because it was too stiff, and now he combs it out and he makes it a soft coat that's wearable. So you could say the same thing like Rav Asi said. You're kind of the shvach and you're selling it back, and there shouldn't be any halacha of baltalin here. And says the Gemara, no, another case. He was hired to tread on it or to step on it, which is a certain step in the process of when you finish making this coat. In order that it's woven, there's certain gaps in it, so they step in it that it should be tight together to tighten it. And bitcha b'masa, he's being paid not for the improvement. This person is not getting paid at all for the improvement of this coat. That's let's say the weaver is the one that whoever made the coat is the one that's getting paid for that. But then you have another person, he's just getting paid for the physical labor. He bangs with his feet and he gets paid for every bang with his feet. That's what he gets paid for. The Hainis Chira, so that's a worker. He's not getting paid for the shvach. He's just getting paid for the physical labor that he's doing, and it's regarding that the Braisa said that Ye'over and Baltalin. Okay, so therefore there's no rai over here, no question that is on Rav Asi. Now the Gemara goes back a second to discuss over here this halacha of Baltalin. According to what we thought in the beginning to explain this Braisa, the loyagri lebichi, he wasn't hired just for the physical labor, but he was hired actually to do alterations, to improve it, and something like that. And over there, the Braisa said that there is a lav of Baltalin that applies. If that would be the interpretation of the Braisa, then Misayeh le Ravashi. This would be a proof to Rav Sheshes. The Rav Sheshes that discussed such a kind of a case, whether there's a lav of Baltalin. The boy name of Rav Sheshes was asked about this kind of a case. As I mentioned before, the simple understanding of the lav of Baltalin applies to a person that's working for the time, a day worker, a week, a month, whatever it is. And when the time is up, he has to be paid by the end of that day. But now, Rav Sheshes was asked the shaila, kablanos over olav mishum Baltalin or yen over. Person that's being paid for a job, not by the time, will Baltalin apply over there or not? V'amulu Rav Sheshes, and Rav Sheshes responded, over. Yeah, you are over on Baltalin as well, even though he's just being paid by the job, not by the time. Okay, so now if we're going to say the interpretation of the Braisa before is also such a case where he's being paid for the alterations, for the condition of this thing that you gave him, so then you see exactly what Rav Sheshes said, that Baltalin applies over here. So now the Gemara says, Lema de Rav Sheshes, pliga de Rav Asi. Would this mean that Rav Sheshes argues on what Rav Asi said? Because according to Rav Asi, if you're being paid for a job, there's no Baltalin. It's like a buyer and a seller. Because what you improved is yours and you're selling it back. Mashenkin Rav Sheshes is saying there is Baltalin because you're a worker. You're not kainit. Even the shvach that you did belongs to the original owner and he's paying you for the labor that was done, and therefore there is Baltalin. So it seems like there's a machlokes here between them. So the Gemara says, Alma Shmuel. Shmuel explained, yeah, there's another gears here. Shmuel didn't, it's not the Shmuel was much earlier. Shmuel Bar Abba explained that the case of here, or Shmuel Bar Acha that is, Shmuel Bar Acha or other gears here of Shmuel Bar Abba, the whole shaila that was asked to Rav Sheshes was not asked regarding the case that Rav Asi was speaking about, where you get raw materials and the craftsman improves it and creates a new thing out of it. That for sure he would agree to Rav Asi that there's no Baltalin. You're kainit and therefore there's no Baltalin there. He was talking about a mailman that's delivering postage. So for such a thing, you're just taking something and you're delivering it, you're doing a job, and you're not being paid for your time. You're being paid for the delivery. Similar to what we said before regarding a person that's being paid to just do an action, to bang, and he's just being paid for the labor. You're just being paid for the delivery, but you're not being paid by the time. And that was a shaila that they asked him whether Baltalin applies over there or not. And he said, even though you're not being paid for the time, you're being paid for the actual job, for the labor, Baltalin does apply. When you've done your job, you have to pay this person until the end of that day. Shall we say that what we're discussing over here is a machlokes of the following Tanoim? And here we have a piece of Gemara that we learned in Kedushin. The Gemara is a Chazara here, mamish the same Gemara like Kedushin. A woman that is, comes to a man and says to a craftsman, Aseli, Shedem, Nizamim, V'tabois. Here, I'm giving you raw materials and make for me from this a bracelet or a nose ring or another or a ring. And with the job that you do me, and then I'll get it back from you, a nice piece of jewelry, I'll be Mekadeshes to you. So, Kivin Sha'asan, as soon as this craftsman makes this nice jewelry for her, Mekadeshes. He gives it back to her, she's Mekadeshes, with the value of the work that he did. Divrei Rav Meir, this is Rav Meir's opinion. Chachamim say no, Eina Mekudeshes, she's not Mekudeshes, Ad Sheyagia Mamin Liyoda, until money comes into her hands. Okay, so before the Gemara will explain what the basis of the machlekes is, the Gemara will first translate these words. What does it mean until money comes to her hands? My mom, when Chachamim say until money comes into her hands, what did Chachamim mean to say? If Chachamim meant to say that she won't be Mekudeshes until she gets this money, meaning these raw materials that are now jewelry, until she gets this back, and then she will be Mekudeshes. Does that mean Rab Meir holds that even if she didn't get back the jewelry, she'll be Mekudeshes? How? She didn't get back anything from him. She gave him raw materials. She didn't get back yet the jewelry. How could she be Mekudeshes? Pshita, obviously, what did Chachamim mean when they said Mamain, my Mamain Acher? That what Chachamim was saying is that when this craftsman returns the jewelry to her, she's not going to be Mekudeshes. He has to give her back. He has to give her other money, Shava Pruta, to be Mekadesher. The raw materials, she gave him those materials. He's just giving back to her the jewelry that he formed out of these raw materials, but he's not giving her anything new. So therefore, she won't be Mekudeshes. Okay, so here now the Gemara is going to discuss three different angles of understanding of this machlokes between Rab Meir and the Chachamim, whether she's Mekudeshes or not in such a case, when she gave him raw materials and he returns to her a nice piece of jewelry. Is he giving her something new or not? One, before you see the Gemara inside, one point of the discussion over here is the understanding of payment for such a kind of a job. When you give someone raw materials to do a job for you, there's different stages in the process of finishing the job. Like making furniture, or in this case, making the piece of jewelry. So do you say that the person only owes the money for this craftsman that did the job when the job is done? That by safe. And when this job is done, that's when you owe the money. Until the job is not done, I don't owe you a penny. 75% of the job is zero. At the end, that's when I owe you money. Or do you say no? Every percent that I do, every stage of what I do in making this piece of jewelry, so I did 10%, you owe me 10% of what I did, another 10%, you owe me another 10%, and then when the job is done, that's when I pay you. So the emphasis, everybody agrees that you don't pay until the end, but the question is, when does the chiyuv of what you owe start? Is it throughout the entire job, or is it only at the end? That's one angle of this discussion. Another point of the discussion over here is being Mekadesh b'milvah. If you remember, we learned in Kedushin, could you be Mekadesh a woman if you lent her money and then you say to her, okay, I forgive the loan, and be Mekadesh to me with the money that I lent you and I'm forgiving this loan? It's another angle of this discussion. And then the main thing that the Gemara is going to start off with, the Gemara wants to focus on over here is B'nigeya to this inyan of umen kaina b'shvach keli. If you give a craftsman these raw materials, and now he finishes the job and gives it back to you, what's really happening over here? Do I say that the craftsman created a new thing, so this new piece of jewelry is his? You didn't give me jewelry, the jewelry now belongs to the craftsman, and therefore if he gives it back to her, he's giving her back a new thing? Or do you say no, that the jewelry is just the raw materials that was formed and it belongs to her the entire time? You're just being paid for the labor to create that piece of jewelry, and therefore you're giving back to her materials. You're not giving her back anything new. That's the concept of the Gemara. Now let's see it inside. So the Gemara. Now, Svarua, when they wanted to bring a raya over here that there's a machlekes Tanaim regarding the uman kaina b'shvach keli or not, so they thought that we should say as follows. The Kula Alme, everybody would agree, Yeshna l'schiras mitchila v'atzayif. When you pay for a job that a person does, you're paying, the obligation of payment really comes throughout the time. Every percent that's done, you have an obligation already to pay from before. Okay, so now that means when you come at the end, you're really paying something that was already owed from before, because you owe it already during the entire time when it was being formed. And also the Kula Alma, everybody agrees, HaMekadesh b'milveh ein Mekudeshes. If you Mekadesh a woman with a loan, money that she owed you, and now you're forgiving that loan, she will not be Mekudeshes. Okay, so over here, in this case, the money that she owed him for the job that he was doing for her, when is this money owed? This money is already owed from before. Because every percent of what he did to make this jewelry, she already owes the money from before. And now when the job is done and he gives it back to her for free, so then really in essence what's happening is he's forgiving her a loan, he's forgiving her money that she owed him already from before, throughout the time when he was making this. So now what is the argument whether she should be Mekudeshes or not? My love, don't you think that the point of the argument is a different point? This craftsman that's making this jewelry, does he acquire this new piece of jewelry that he created or not? The Rav Meir's opinion is this craftsman, he acquires now this new piece of jewelry that he created out of the raw materials. And therefore when he gives her back jewelry, that he's giving her something new. She gave him raw materials, he's giving back his piece of jewelry. Rabbanan Savri, however, Rabbanan's opinion is, this craftsman that made the jewelry, he's not kind anything. He's forming it. He gets paid for the labor. He gives it back to her. He's not giving her anything new. It was her materials, and therefore she's not mukadeshes. So here we see that we could say that machlokes is this point that we're discussing here of what Rav Asi said. Says the Gemara, loy, not necessarily is that the explanation of the machlokes, and the Gemara focuses on now on the other aspects of this machlokes. The kul alma, everybody could agree, ein uman kaina b'shvach keli. That a uman does not acquire in the shvach, has no kinyan in the improvement of this keli. So here he's not kaina this jewelry at all. Rather, the argument over here is the argument between them is the obligation of payment. Is the obligation of payment throughout every percent that you make, or is it obligation of payment only start when it's done at the end? Rav Meir says the payment is at the end. So there's no loan here. There isn't anything that she owed him from before. It's at the end when right now there's money here that she owes him, and right now he's not taking the money, he's giving it to her for free. That's not Mekadosh B'milva. Mekadosh B'milva is something that money that he lent her from before, and she owes him the money, and now she already has that money, and he's just coming to be Meichelit. Over here, this is considered to be giving it to her something new right now when he gives her this thing without paying, and she should have paid him right now. That's something new that he's giving her, and she's Mekadeshes. Rabbanan say no, the payment for a job really is throughout the entire time, every percent that he makes, and therefore this is money she owed him from before, and now he's just being meichel that payment. So that's a mekadesh b'milveh. So she's not mekadeshes. Or we could focus, we could say that machlokes is in the third aspect of this concept here. Everybody agrees that really the payment starts from before, the obligation of payment is throughout the job. And they're arguing about whether you can be Mekadesh Isha by forgiving a loan. The Rav Meir Sava Mekadesh B'milva Mekadeshes. Rav Meir's opinion is when you forgive a loan that you already lent her from before, she is Mekadeshes. The Rabbanan Savri and Rabbanan say no, Mekadesh B'milva and Mekadeshes. If you forgive a loan, she will not be Mekadeshes. Those are the three ways you can explain the machlokes. The Gemara comes actually with a fourth way. Rava says the Kula Alme Yeshnu L'Schiras Mitchila Vatzaif. Everybody agrees that the payment for this job starts from before already, and therefore really this is a loan that you're forgiving her. And also the Kula Alma, everybody agrees, HaMekadesh B'milveh and Mekadeshes. When you Mekadesh Isha by forgiving a loan, she should not be Mekadeshes. And additionally, the Kula Alma, everybody agrees, Ein Uman Kaina B'shvach Keli. The craftsman that created something new out of raw materials does not acquire this, and he's not really giving her anything. The raw materials is hers the whole time. And even what he made now, it's all hers. Hello, what are they arguing about? There's a specific case that this Bryce is talking about. And the case over here is when this person, he took these raw materials and he added a certain precious gem. She gave him gold and she put in a diamond into this gold ring. He added something into it. So he's giving her back her materials with the jewelry that he made, including another gem. So what's the argument here? Rav Meir says, Milve upruta. If you're Mekadesh Isha by forgiving her alone, and you add another pruta as well to it, so on one hand, you're being Mekadesh her with a milva, which is something old. There's nothing new you're giving her in that. But you're adding also a certain pruta here, daita pruta. She understands and she knows, and she's thinking about the kedusha should be with the pruta, with this new thing that you're adding, and therefore she's Mekadesh. So over here as well, you added a neifich, you added a precious gem, she's Mekadesh with that. Rabbanan Savri, Milva, Pruta, when you Mekadesh Isha with a loan, by forgiving her a loan, and also adding a Pruta, Daita Milva. She's thinking about the loan that's being forgiven, and with that, she's not Mekadeshes. So over here, she thinks she's Mekadeshes with the raw materials, and with that, she's not Mekadeshes. So therefore, over here, Rabbanan says she's not Mekadeshes. So the Gemara, but look to the Hani Tanoi, these machlokes that we're saying here, there's another Braisa that they argue about the same subject. The time we learned in the Braisa. A person tells a woman, B'schar sha'asisi imach. You should be mukadeshes to me for a certain job that I did for you, and you owe me the money for this job that I already did for you in the past. and now I'm forgiving you this money that you owe me for that job. You should be Mekadeshes. And a Mekadeshes. She's not Mekadeshes. This is a loan. She owed him this money and he's just forgiving a loan. However, if he tells her, I'm going to do a job for you, and when that job is done, you won't have to pay me, I'll just give you back this item, this job that I did for you, then Mekadeshes, she will be Mekadeshes. Rab Nosson says, there's no difference. Even if it's a job that he's going to do for her, and he tells her, I'm going to give it to you, and you should be Mekadeshes to me, then she still will not be Mekadeshes. For sure, if it's a job that he already did in the past for her, and he already owes her, she already owes him the money from the past, for sure she won't be Mekadeshes. That's one machlekes here. Now, but Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, "Be'emes amru." The truth is, now the halacha is, we have a Kabbalah. This is the halacha. Bein b'schasha sisi imach, bein b'schasha esi imach. Like Rab Nosson said, in both of these cases, whether it's a job he already did for her and she owes him the money, or a job that he's going to do for her now and she'll owe him the money, and Mekadeshes. Either way, she will not be Mekadeshes. However, if he does this job for her now, if with raw materials that she gives him, and he adds a gem of his, something of his, then Mekadeshes. Then she will be Mekadeshes. So the Gemara explains now that here we see these two arguments that we discussed before. What's the argument between the Tana Kama of Rab Nosson? They're arguing about how we define the payment of a job that you do. If you say that the payment of a job is throughout the job, as the Gemara called it before, mitchila va'at saif, so then even if he tells her, I'm going to do you a job now, and you should be Mekadeshes for me, she still won't be Mekadeshes. Because it automatically turns into a loan. Because she already owes him the money throughout the entire time that the job is being done. And when the job is done, he's forgiving her money that she owes him from the past. So therefore, that's the opinion of Rab Nosson. She won't be Mekadeshes. But however, the Tana Kama says, no, when you pay for a job that you're doing now, the payment comes at the end. So now when he gives her back this job that he did, he's giving her something new right now. That's that machlekes. Now, Ben Rab Nosson and Rab Yehuda Nasi, the argument between Rab Nosson and Rab Yehuda Nasi is, it can be nayu, as we mentioned before, milva pruta. When you mekadesh with a loan and you add something else to it, is she focusing on the loan or is she focusing on the pruta? That's what Rab Yehuda Nasi said. If you add a gem, she's focusing on the gem, and therefore she will be mekadeshes. That's the explanation of this machlekes. Okay, the Gemara over here goes into a whole new inyan because the blot tomorrow is much shorter, so we have. It works out with Mitzvah Shem, where we're going to leave it for tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.